Hi, it's Pete Thomas from My Safety Consultant, where we're building the UK's largest platform of independent health, safety, and fire consultants. So, whether you're looking to grow your business, gain more exposure, we're here to help you connect with clients and stay up to date in the industry with all the latest news. Today, I'm going to dive into the Home Office study on fire risk assessors, which was released literally 2 days ago, the 4th of October, 2024. So, study involved over 1,200 fire risk assessors. It's actually undertaken in 2023. I remember completing the study. I'm surprised it's taken this long for the information to come out. It looked at competency, capacity, experience in the field, and it looked at emerging trends and what it means for the future of fire safety professionals. So just to give you a little bit of background on it, 1,200 fire risk assessors were surveyed. Gender breakdown, first shocker, 92% male, only 8% female respondents. Now, you'd have to be blind not to see that there's a gender disparity within fire, okay? I've spoken about it a number of times, but I didn't realize it was quite that bad. I actually posted on LinkedIn a couple of years ago before speaking at London Build, and I asked if there were any studies done on the numbers and the breakdown of the demographics working within fire safety. I actually couldn't find anything. I had to go through, I want to say it was the Fire Risk Assessors Register on the IFE. I actually scrolled through and just did a bit of like anecdotal counting up of what appeared to be female names on there, and the numbers were shockingly low. But it may also reflect who completed the survey, where the survey was promoted. I don't know, but those numbers seem pretty shocking to me. It also looks at consultant versus in-house. So it called them fee-earning assessors. And the survey was completed by approximately 68%, exactly 68% were fee-earning assessors or consultants, against 32% of in-house assessors or employees. While this could be due to the survey's visibility, I also think that it is quite reflective of the industry. I would say the majority of people that work in fire safety as fire risk assessors tend to be consultants versus employees. But it did make me wonder if the in-house assessors were still consultants, but they were employed by a larger consulting company. I'm not entirely sure. I would say it wasn't clear. But my gut says 68% sounds about right for the amount of consultants in the industry. The other thing that I noticed straight away was the age demographic. And again, I don't think this is entirely surprising, but when you drill down into the numbers, actually, it's potentially really concerning, okay? 60%, and this is approximately because the way the numbers were broken down in the in the survey itself, it wasn't very clear, but around about 60% were over the age of 50, and only 7% of responders were under the age of 35. Let's dive into that one first of all. So this is, to me, it's about how do we attract talent into the industry. If over 60% are over 50, now my first thoughts were, well, it's consultancy, right? And consulting tends to lend itself to people post-retirement. You know, it's like, I've worked my career, I'm now coming up to retirement. What am I going to do? I'm going to spend the next 5 years as a consultant doing what I did, but charging day rate. Okay. It makes sense. So I did wonder if the majority are over the age of 50 simply because they're consultants and the industry lends itself to that. But I don't think it's quite that. I do think we're going to have a problem attracting top talent into the industry in the future, and that's really concerning. Only 7% of the industry is under 35. That doesn't matter whether they're employed or as a consultant. And I did dive a little bit into why we could have some trouble attracting people into the industry. Okay, so if I'm sat there and I'm going, okay, what am I going to do as my career? And I start looking at fire risk assessment, the first thing I'm going to pull up on Google is the number of criminal prosecutions over the past couple of years, and they are skyrocketing. Now, you may have the opinion on that this is fair. It's cleaning up the industry. You know, there's a few bad apples out there, but when you see that those people were very well qualified, they were on the relevant registers, they had the relevant company certifications, you do start to look at it and think, well, that's actually just a real risk. And, you know, I've spoken to a couple of these assessors, and the stories are really quite concerning. They're quite shocking, actually. And the other thing is increased insurance costs. I think FSM, Fire Safety Matters, ran an article in 2021, and I think they cited one example where an insurance premium had gone from £3,500 to £38,000 a year, 10-fold increase. So I'm there and I go, okay, so I'm going to join this profession. I've got a risk of being criminally prosecuted. It's costing me an increasing amount in order to do the job. Why am I going to do it? I genuinely think that we're going to have an issue attracting top talent into the industry if this continues. Just my view. But this brings opportunities, right? Because as people leave the industry, as the numbers of fire risk assessors available decreases, then the day rate increases. And I've seen this myself. I've seen day rates go from £400 and I've now seen them up to £3,000 a day. And in fact, you'll have seen the DLUC letter probably regarding the Building Safety Act saying, we've heard people charging £3,000 a day. In fact, I don't know if they actually said 3,000. I'm pretty sure it was mentioned. But it's like, the insurance is so high, the risk of prosecution is high, the risk of getting something wrong and being sued is high. What are you going to do? You can't do this on £400 a day anymore. It's just not going to cut it. There's too much risk. So not only is there a decrease in the number of fire risk assessors available, but there's also increase in demand through the Building Safety Act requirements and through Section 156. Yeah, there's risk, but there's opportunity. Okay. There was a breakdown in terms of the perceived levels of competence of consultants versus employees. 53% of fee-earning assessors, consultants, were certified, compared to only 31% of in-house assessors, i.e. employees. The inference from this is that in-house teams are less formally trained. That might not be true. The organizations that employ them just might not be willing to pay for the cost for them to be certified, the training, the time to release them from work. Is it a legal requirement? No, it's not. Why do we need it then? I can imagine having this conversation with the company director saying, listen, will you pay for my certification? No, I won't. We don't need to. In fact, I've had this discussion over professional memberships before with employers, and they'll say, no, we will pay for one, or we'll pay for what you need to do the job, or we'll pay for what we advertise the job out at as requiring, but any more we won't pay for. And when you look at the role of an employed safety professional or an employed fire safety professional, their role is often quite broad, right? You see these huge job titles now: head of safety, fire, health, well-being. A company is not going to pay for all of the relevant professional bodies, all of the certifications for those. However, I will say, if we are starting to see a shortage of fire risk assessors, and we are starting to see massive increase in day rate, which I think it's fair to say that I've seen, I can also imagine a company director going, right, how many have we got to do? We've got to do X at £3,000 a day. That's an absolute fortune. I read the guidance. It says that I can do it myself. Therefore, I can just put Dave on a course, right? What course are we going to put Dave on? Well, I've had a look. One of the largest fire safety certification bodies is providing 1 day fire risk assessor training for £X. So I can put them on a 1 day course and they can do it. It's not right. It beggars belief. And, we all know as professionals in this industry that's not going to cut it, but I can't just imagine it. I've seen it. I've seen it where organizations have someone that's completed NEBOSH fire. We can have a debate around that all day. Level 4 qualification. Personally, I did NEBOSH fire years ago. I wouldn't have felt competent to undertake a fire risk assessment having only undertaken NEBOSH fire. But they're using someone who's completed NEBOSH fire as the peer reviewer to undertake the reviews of the fire risk assessments that are completed on a departmental level, so completed by someone who has completed like IOSH managing safely. And this is a real concern. I can see this as being a real issue in the future where we have a shortage of fire risk assessors, so people just start undertaking this work in-house without the level of competence to do it. Okay. The next thing that I pulled out the survey was about certifications and professional memberships. And again, looking at the age demographic. So I looked at assessors under the age of 49. Only 35% were certified, 29% were members of a professional body, 55% were neither certified nor members. Now, as you increase up the age demographic, the numbers of certified and professional members increase dramatically. But again, for that younger demographic, it appeared like they were shunning the certification and the professional membership. They did provide some information about reasons for non-certification. So they looked at cost. 47% said the financial burden of certification or membership was too high. They also looked at time. 24% of the time commitment for certification and CPD was prohibitive for 24% of assessors. I would put those two together, right? Because in consultancy, time is money. If I'm doing a CPD day, or if I'm undertaking some certification audit, that's a day that I've lost a day of fee earning work, right? So it's a double hit for me. Not only do I lose the money coming in, but then I have to pay the money out. So they've said about cost and time. To me, those are one and the same if I'm a consultant. That's really important. The other thing was they said it's not necessary. Again, 31% said it's not necessary or believe certification is not essential to demonstrate their competence. Suggesting that some may feel their experience outweighs formal certification. Now, again, this is really interesting because if it costs a lot of money, if it's going to take up my time, and then it's not a strict legal requirement, and it's not going to give me any commercial advantage, why would I do it? So, and by the way, I'm not saying that's fact. I'm just saying that would be the thought process that would go through my head, whether that's right or wrong. And I think this is something that we need to look at as a profession, as an industry. The other 24% said about assessment criteria, and they said some assessors found the certification assessment criteria too challenging or restricted, particularly when their actual work involved lower risk environments. I 100% agree with this, and this is something that I think the survey missed. When you look at the conclusion of the survey said, our survey says, God, that's showing my age, isn't it? The survey said, actually, no, because they've redone that now with Gino DeCampo. What am I going on about? Sorry. I just thought it was a really old program. Now I'm definitely showing my age. Right. So the survey looked at this assessment criteria for lower risk environments. And it actually said, look, this is an opportunity here because we can take people who are only qualified to undertake fire risk assessments at a lower risk industry and then train them up to do a higher risk industry. I felt like that missed the point entirely. And my rationale being is that many people work in a certain industry, right? So if I'm a safety and fire consultant, I'm going to aim my services at an industry or an area, right? So let's be honest. Okay, so say I aim at an area in Somerset. Do I need to be a tier 1 assessor for tall buildings above 18 meters? No, because there's none down here. So it doesn't matter to me. Why would I need to do it? Unless I'm going to travel into London, it doesn't make any sense for me to even qualify to that level. The other thing is when I first started in the industry as a fire risk assessor, I was undertaking fire risk assessments in caravan parks. Right? It's a weird industry. It's like this quasi-fire safety industry where the guidance comes from site licenses and is enforced by the local authority, not the fire authority. Weird industry. I don't even think that's covered in the tier systems. That was what my consultancy aimed at, that industry. So why would I need to increase my qualification to the next level? Again, it didn't make any sense to me as a recommendation. I also think another thing that they missed, they've talked about cost, they've talked about time, they talked about some other things. I think one of the biggest areas is confusion around memberships, and confusion is time. As a fire risk assessor, I need access to information. Okay. Now I can get that information from the FPA, the Fire Protection Association. I could be a member of the Fire Protection Association. They provide me with information that I need. They're not a professional body. They're not a register, so I wouldn't be certified, but they can provide me with information. I can get the information from the British standards. I can get the information from Barber EHS. I can get the information from Google, but it's not ideal because who knows that it's the actual information that you need. It's not just a secondhand interpretation. So I would prefer to go to a primary source. Then I've got the professional bodies like IFE, get my membership. I get some, designatory letters after my name, which make me look more professional in the industry. That's great. Then I have the certifications, i.e. the fire risk assessors registers, which give me some indication of tiers or, whatever I need. Is it like tier 2 NAFRA, which means I can do X, Y, and Z in the industry. And then once I have my certification, or regardless, I guess, of whether I have my certification, I can go for a corporate certification. So I could look at, say, for example, BAFE, SP205, and then my company could be certified and independently audited. I've got to say, as someone that's been a fire risk assessor in the past, I think this is complicated. I know I'm going to get some hate for this. I know someone that sits on some of these panels is going to message me on LinkedIn and goes, "That's rubbish, that, Pete. You're just too unintelligent to understand the complicated system that we set up." But it's not. It's really complicated. I'm sorry. And if it's complicated for someone working inside the industry, it's extremely complicated to a business that I'm trying to sell my services to. Because quite frankly, most of them don't care. I'm sorry to say, they just don't. They don't care. They don't understand it. They don't have the time to understand it. That's why they contract it out. If they contract it out and it's too complicated or too expensive or too difficult, they're just going to get someone internally to do it. And they'll just go, "Well, look, you did a union rep course years ago. Can you do fire risk assessments?" "Well, yeah, I can do risk assessments." "Great. Can you do them then?" "That'd be brilliant. Thanks very much." And this is where the problem is for me. It's not joined up enough. It's not streamlined enough. And this survey that was undertaken last year, it seemed to me when I was completing it that the survey was just aimed at working out how we can get more fire risk assessors to be certified, and not necessarily if certification, membership of a professional body, corporate certification was actually the right way to go in the first place. I wonder if that's the approach that we should look at. Which certifications are right? How do we streamline that? How do we make that work rather than having like 3 or 4 different registers, 3 or 4 different professional bodies, a ton of different qualification routes, right? There's just a ton of them. And how we could set up a criteria for that in order to sort of standardize that so that people knew the route that they were going to progress. Directors knew the route that their employees had to progress through. By the way, I've not even mentioned the RRO, have I? I was going to talk about the RRO and the fact that this is against the backdrop that directors can actually undertake their own fire risk assessments. So that's the negative out the way. There are some positives here. I love fire safety. I think it's a phenomenal industry. I think fire risk assessors on the whole do a really phenomenal job. I think there's some great opportunities in fire. And I think that now that there has been more focus on it, I think we've seen a bit of an exodus from the industry of the people that would like, what do I want to say, chancers. I'm not going to say that anyone was out there that, was doing anything wrong. They probably were, but, I'm not here to point the finger, but I think there were some chancers in the industry, right? I think we've definitely seen the number of fire risk assessors come down. And I think that's left a real opportunity for the fire risk assessors that's left. And it's clear to me from this study that the consultants are the ones that are driving the competence. They're the ones that are driving the qualifications. They're the ones that are pushing to be, to have the relevant certifications. And that, for me, running my safety consultant is really positive. That's something that, I don't know, it just makes me sort of proud to be a part of this industry and what we're doing. I also feel like we're moving away from the stack 'em high, sell 'em cheap days. Although I will say, in this article, in the survey, there was a suggestion that there were some fire risk assessors who were undertaking over 250, in fact, over 300 fire risk assessments a year. I posted that on LinkedIn. Someone immediately replied, "Well, that seems reasonable in these circumstances." And I was like, that doesn't seem reasonable. Hey, not in the slightest, not in your life. That is not reasonable. I can't see how 300 risk assessments is reasonable. You got to think, right, that How many working days have we got in a year? 250. How long does it take to do a fire risk assessment? How long does it take to do the report? How long does it take to provide feedback back to the client? How long does it take to, it just, look, I don't know what they were doing. They'd have had to have been doing, like those little tie rack stores, those little tie rack shops or something that you used to have in a train station, and they would have to all be next to each other, and they'd have to. It just doesn't make any sense to me. It's too much. I can't believe someone tried to argue with me that's enough. That that 300 is doable. It's just not. But it's those stack 'em high, sell 'em cheap that seem to be falling by the wayside and leaving behind the really professional consultants that put a lot of time and effort into their business, a lot of time and effort into their certifications, their qualifications, and their professionalism. That to me is a positive. It's clear that there's been a lot of change over the last few years, but it's clear that the change, and it's clear that there's going to be a lot more change to come. Let's see how the industry is going to evolve over the next couple of years. I'm going to include a link to the Home Office report below. These have been my initial observations. I'd love to hear your thoughts. This is what I think. Okay. I'd love to hear what you think. What do you think the future of the fire safety profession is going to look like in terms of consultancy? Drop me a comment. Let me know what you think. If you're watching this on YouTube or Spotify, please hit the like and subscribe button, even if you didn't like it, because then next time you listen, you can listen to someone else that you don't like. It's positive. Also, head over to My Safety Consultant. Right now, we've got a 3-month free trial running. Get your business on there. Get signed up for free. Enjoy some great exposure over the next few months. Get a great backlink for your website. It'll promote your website's SEO. We've got some really exciting news coming. We've worked really hard on the new website. New website is going to launch in the next few weeks. It's been exhausting in terms of the amount of effort that we've put into it, but the new website is going live soon. As a thank you to everyone that signed up to the our MVP, our minimum viable product website, we're going to upgrade them to the next tier up for the coming year. We're also going to honor any sort of free trial periods when we transfer over or migrate onto the new website. And you don't have to do anything, right? We will transfer all of that information across. So that's really positive. But at the moment, we've got a 3-month free trial. We won't have that when the new website launches. So get on there now, 3-month free trial. And then when the new website goes live, you'll already be on there. That's great. Thanks very much.